every now and again, somebody will walk into your life and they will change it in some way forever. And so this is very true of my very first guest on Argon TV. He walked into my life in 1993. And at the time, neither of us knew each other. In fact, we've never, ever met personally. We've been in contact online the whole time. But my life took a whole different direction because of my first guest. And I'd like to introduce you today to my very good friend. And let me just read out my intro to him. So my guest today is William Bennett, who is president and CTO of Pangolin Laser Systems. Pangolin is the company that produces the hardware, software, and even the lasers used to produce special effects for theme parks like Disney and Universal. Also major sports like NBA, NHL, and Super Bowl halftime show. Well, that's pretty cool. Major concerts and tours like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Justin Timberlake, corporate clients like Hilton Hotels, Marriott, BMW, and even the Windows 10 background was done using Pangolin systems. He has nearly 50 patents in the field of laser scanning, optics, and vibration control. And I have known him long enough to call him Bill. You have to call him William. Now, Bill's also a musician who got his start in lasers while creating a laser show for his rock band in the 1980s, which was something I never knew about you, Bill.
Yeah.
And he was able to parlay that into a business that had been helping people with lasers ever since. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome Bill Bennett from Laser Pangolin Systems to Argon TV. So welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you for that gracious introduction, Tim.
Great. It's great to have you here. We've been sort of reminiscing about how we met in 93 and how I was introduced into Pangolin software. Mm-hmm. But I had just finished an event in Expo 92 in Sevilla, in Spain. And I was working on a project in Abu Dhabi, and one of the crew there was working on some software. And I had been used to software the way you had to do coding. And as I said, I'm a very visual person and I don't like coding. And they showed me the Pangolin timeline and I was immediately attracted to it because of the drag and drop features and the imagery that it had. So I felt very comfortable with it. But wow, 93, we've been working together and your software has literally changed the direction of my life. It's traveled with me ever since, and I've lived in 4 or 5 countries, and it's powered the whole of my company, which is Argon Animation. I've never done a show without Pangolin, so awesome. I don't know if you realize awesome how you touch people's lives.
Well, thanks for that, Tim. And as you and I were talking about, kind of in the lead up to this, I'm flattered. I'm honored that our system has helped you in that way. And what was interesting is about 2 days ago, Edwin Zilstra, a guy from the Netherlands, wrote to me from DTL Lasers in the Netherlands. And he said, hey, our guy, Harry, we just celebrated his 25th year working with lasers here. And he's used the Pangolin system the whole 25 years. And I think that the great news is that probably most people wouldn't even really know that this is a career path or even a life path, as it has been for you. That not only can you do these things, but another thing you and I were talking about, Tim, is that each person's kind of take on laser shows is different. The style that Harry produces and the style that the industry greats like you produce, and Corey Simpson and Mike Dunn and Jay Heck and these old timers like you and I are, who've been with us for a long time. Each of these people have created lives for themselves in this, and each person has their own different direction. And it just goes to show you, just like artistry as a whole, you got Rembrandt, Picasso, and Patrick Nagel, and different people like this, Andy Warhol, all of whom are different, all of whom have great regard. Art Deco, and just these different things that you can do with art and different ways of applying art is the same way you could do with laser. So many different styles and so much different things that you could do. And And thanks for that very, very gracious introduction. And I'm glad that I touched your life for the better and for the positive, and that it's been a good ride for you.
Yeah, and it was never like, in the beginning, it was never a conscious direction. I didn't say, right, I'm going to do this. Yeah. I kind of fell into lasers accidentally, if there are accidents in this world. Yeah. And I was, as I said earlier, I left school. I was struggling to find a career. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was just doing anything. And then one day someone opened the door for me and I stepped through it, and it took me into the world of show production. And I immediately realized that I was in my home. I went, this is the place I need to be. And then I saw laser and it just blew my mind. I fell in love with laser immediately. It was love at first sight. I realized I had something very special, because in those days, in the 90s and late 80s, laser was still, kind of rare. And I can remember going to events and people were like, whoa, the laser boys are here, And we were kind of in a very special niche. And it just happened. I just followed my love of what I was doing. And then slowly it started to evolve into a career. And then I realized I have something special. And I know we could talk about this forever. And one of the things that we are going to talk about in a moment is a very new product that you have called Beam Brush, which allows people to paint with laser, which I can't wait to talk about in a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to ask you a couple of little things. One thing that I've always wondered about, why did you call Pangolin Pangolin?
Well, it's a great question. And as you know, being in Philippines, what a pangolin is, most people who've never even heard of a pangolin doesn't know what it is, and other than knowing that it's the company that makes software, right? So so for those of you who don't know, a pangolin is a small East Asian ant-eating animal. It's kind of like a cross between an aardvark and an armadillo. Has very like an armored scale outer shell, and it can roll up. There are videos on YouTube of tigers approaching a pangolin, and they roll up into this ball, and then all the tiger can do is roll the ball around. He can't get to the meat or anything. So so the tiger just goes away and finds some other kind of prey. But Patrick Murphy co-founded Pangolin, and so in 1986, and was watching a National Geographic special on the pangolin, and this interesting ant-eating animal that rolls up into a ball when threatened by predators. And back then there was no internet, and we to try to figure out what to name your company was kind of a daunting task. You had to do this official government thing called a name search. And the thought was, well, we'll just take the easy way out and we'll choose a name for the company that other people wouldn't possibly think of. After all, who in their right mind would name their company after a small East Asian ant-eating animal? So that's kind of the gist. It was kind of to pay tribute to this animal, but also to try to skate this thing that seemed daunting and seemed very official, sounded expensive, a name search, so that was the motivation there.
Okay, cool. And I'm sure you know that pangolins are an endangered species.
Oh, of course, yes. And I hope we're not endangered.
Well, there's only one of you, yeah.
Yeah, we've weathered many storms. We've been through economic up and down, through disruption, through lots of competitors who've come and gone, and we've kind of stuck around there. We're in it for the long haul. So
excellent. Well, now I know. Yeah. And I'm guessing that over the years that you've been involved in lasers, they've changed a lot since the early days. What kind of applications have you've been working with lasers, and how have they changed since you started?
Oh, sure. Well, the first real laser show that people would have become aware of is in 1973 in the Griffith Observatory with Ivan Dreyer, who just projected lasers. And back then when it started, it was just, there were no laser scanners. And what was done was anything, like when you first get a laser, the story I tell is I get a laser, I got it from Mellis Rio, it was a 5 milliwatt, and you just start shining it through things. So I shined it through my mom's diamond ring and shined it through shower door glass. Anything you could shine it on, that's what you're doing with a laser at first. So what Ivan Dreyer did is, it's shining a laser off a crumpled up tinfoil, off of various diffraction things, and off of little little bottles like this. Is a bearing in here. I'm testing bearing lubrication and outgassing, but they just take bottles like this and heat it up with a torch and curl the bottle all to hell, and then shine a laser through it and watch it do all this wacky stuff. And so that's really where they started in planetariums, just through doing various things that looked really cool. And a planetarium is a completely darkened environment. It just makes it look like you're out in the, and they put the stars up there too. It makes it look like you're out in like the Aurora Borealis, and they create animated ways of doing this and sort of thing. So that's kind of where it started. And then in 1975, Coco Montague, the founder of General Scanning, his nickname was Coco, and everyone called him that. His name is really Jean Montague, invented the closed loop scanner that we know and use for a really long time, the G100. Yeah. And I'll show you a picture. I got some visual aids here. This is the very first laser graphic that was ever scanned. It was scanned by Jean Montague himself.
Wow, that's cool.
And he worked on this, and we have a picture of him actually working on this. But you see this IR, and it was an industrial research magazine projecting on the clouds. And it was this is a magazine cover from 1975. And so this was the very first laser graphic that was ever done. And then Jean Montague and a couple other people up in Massachusetts got together and did this show called Love Light, which is a fantastic show. And it involved multiple lasers. And initially, the way to do a multicolor laser show was to either have a multicolored laser like an Argon Krypton or just a broadband Krypton, and to separate that multi-wavelength laser into multiple things using a prism, and then use multiple scanners on each one of those colors. So like one scanner for red, one scanner for green, one scanner for blue type deal. And so that's how they did multicolor. But in 1992, Neos Technology and a couple other companies figured out a crystal called PCAOM, which would take that single beam and be able to modulate it and have it and leave a single beam exiting this small little box to where you can control each wavelength separately. You can control the amplitude. And at that point in time, we had RGB. We can send the RGB light directly to a single set of scanners and really have a single RGB projection. And so that's how it went from about, I think the PCAOM came out right around 1992. So basically from 1992 until now, kind of laser shows in terms of what it is, the light that goes to a scanner, haven't changed very much. Of course, what has changed is the software that controls it. That's mostly what we've concentrated on. And starting in the software that you were using, Laser Show Designer, we called it, Laser Show Designer for Windows back then. And before that, we worked on the Amiga platform. But then we have, we kind of migrated it through to Windows 2000 and Windows XP and then the more modern platforms all the way up to Windows 10. And we've changed our software. First, it was Laser Show Designer for Windows, and then Laser Show Designer 2000, which is still the platform you use, I think. Yep. And then most recently, Quick Show and Beyond, which is our most recent software. Each time trying to add further ease of use and also trying to expand the palette of effects that could be done with a laser. So this would be kind of a representation of a more modern show. You see, you got more letters, you've got kind of multiple colors here, more complex geometry, plus but the combination of both beams and graphics all in the same thing. This could all be done. You know, what's interesting was in the early days, having one projector, one set of scanners was like, wow, this is cool. And then you can have one set of scanners with RGB. It's like, wow, this is really cool. And so with Laser Show Designer 2000, we can control 30 projectors. And with Beyond, people are doing literally record-setting shows with 300 projectors. And we are trying to, you know, what we're working on, our next evolutionary step is to control, and I'm not kidding, 1,000 projectors from one PC. So that's kind of what's happened is things are just becoming increasing in scale, because back when you and I started, Tim, you had to be a couple of guys. The laser tube was 6 feet long, and you had to have 3-phase power and water. So to have one of them was great. But now there are lasers that are this big, you know, and you just put it right on a truss, you plug it in. Sometimes doesn't even need a connection to a network. And so because the ease of use and the tremendous decrease in price, you know, you can get lasers starting at somewhere around $1,000 now. Well, now the trick is to create shows of great scale. You know, so that is That's the thing. These rock concerts and things you go on, it's really about just creating something, a tremendous spectacle.
And that's awesome. And, you know, wow, we're getting old, I think, but because I remember those days.
Right.
And it's funny what you're talking about, you know, like takes two people. I remember working with the coherent i400s, for example, and the power supplies were so big, it would take 4 people to pick them up.
Oh, sure.
We would have like half a ton of equipment. We'd work for 12 to 16 hours installing them, getting the water to work on the chillers.
Right.
And we turn it on and we have a green bean.
Yeah, and hope nobody flushes the toilet.
That's right, yeah. And I remember the Neos Crystalline 92. We used to work with those in Spain as well. So it's mind-boggling to see how everything's changed. It used to be so big and so complex, and you know, you kind of needed a degree to do lasers. And now, as you said, you can literally, you know, plug them in the wall, and off you go. Which is quite it's an amazing journey. And you know, lasers aren't, in the way that we've been using them, are actually not that old compared to other technologies.
That's right. That's right.
But they seem to be, you know, accelerating what we can do with them all of a sudden the last few years.
Yep, definitely.
So awesome. So anyway, I'm presently talking to Bill Bennett from Pangolin Laser Systems, and in a moment we're going to be talking about BeamBrush.
Right.
And I'll be right back in just a moment. So welcome back. This is Tim Bennett, and this is Argon TV, and I am presently talking to Bill Bennett from Pangolin Laser Systems. And let's get round to what we came to talk about, which is BeamBrush, how to paint with laser. Sounds very, very interesting, and it's something that we have all been wanting to do for years. So first of all, the question has to be, how did you come up with the concept of BeamBrush?
Well, you know, it's interesting. So right around 1992, we had gone to the International Planetarium Society, which happens once a year, and each year it's in a different planetarium. And the year that we went to in 1992 was in Salt Lake City. And I hope I'm remembering the dates and the places right, but in Salt Lake City, one of the things that's in Salt Lake City is a company called Evans and Sutherland. They're a very famous, world-renowned graphics company. And one of the things that this company had made is something called Digistar. So we're here at this International Planetarium Society at a planetarium, which is the home of Evans and Sutherland, and they have the Evans and Sutherland graphics projector. So imagine star projector. If you've ever been in a planetarium, it usually has these 2 balls on it, and each ball has many little holes and lenses up there to project the stars onto a dome-shaped ceiling. And so, and it's neat, but it only shows you the stars, which and it does a really good job of showing you the stars. But Evans and Sutherland, being a graphics company, what they did is they created a high power, high brightness CRT and a 180-degree fisheye lens, and they then created a database where you can have the stars. But in addition to that, hey, we got this generic vector projector. We can do anything. So they projected various graphics there. The take off of various rockets and things like that. And one of the things that they can do in Digistar was control the beam diameter. Like they can make stars bigger and smaller as they are in real life. They can, and we had like the rockets taken off, they can make the plume behind the rocket. And it was just like totally cool. And I saw this, I was really inspired. And I said, we should be able to do this in laser. And so Patrick and I were working on the software at the time. It's a brand new platform, Laser Show Designer for Windows. That's where we transitioned from Amiga into Windows. And we said, we should just put this in there. So we put it in our software and we came up with this specification called the beam brush specification. We thought what many business people think, and this is a huge mistake, that all we have to do is put it out there and somebody else will do it. Surely somebody can figure this out. It must be easy. So the thinking that now is laughable is that the idea is the hardest part. That's the thinking, right? So if we just, so nobody else would have ever thought of changing the beam diameter. We're the really smart guys for thinking of changing the beam diameter. So we did the hard work of thinking it. So now somebody else can actually do the work, right? So obviously this is a fallacious thinking. And the easy part is come up with the idea, and the hard part is actually executing the idea. So we sought out people to do this. And we actually, Neos Technologies was one of the people we sought out to do it. And they built 2 different types of prototypes. Another guy out in California, we sought him out. And he built a prototype based on a deformable mirror. And basically, nothing really worked the way we wanted it to work, the way the beam brush specification said it had to work. Because beam brush specification says it's got to be small. At the time, in $1992, it had to be $1,500, couldn't be any more. And all of these systems were physically large, very expensive, in the $7,000 range. They had limited power handling capabilities and stuff like that. And so nothing was really right. So then we just kind of, and so much time had passed. You think about 1992 until now, it's the year 2000. So much time had passed, and we just kind of got sick of waiting for somebody else to do it. And we said, well, damn it, we're going to try to do this thing ourselves. So about 10 years ago, we made an approach, and I should have brought one with me. I got something about the size of it. So we created something that's about this size, about the size of a coffee cup. Mm-hmm. And it worked. And if you search up on YouTube, and if you type Pangolin beam brush, you will find a video we posted from 10 years ago where we actually demonstrated beam brush 10 years ago, both in video and in graphics. And so it worked. But the problem is that by then, 10 years ago, so the year, let's see, 2010, even in 2010, projectors had gotten about this big. And so you can't fit something this big into a projector that's not much bigger than this, right? So it just became impractical. Plus our, what we call moving coil approach created acoustic noise. It was noisy while it operated. And it was, there was some other undesirable things. So even though we made it, we had actually accomplished the effects we wanted to, it just wasn't practical. So we never really brought that to market. We did demonstrate it. We got the video up there on YouTube, but that's about as far as it went. Now, most recently, and I'll give props to a person who's joined our team recently named Lyra Laterno. Lyra saw sitting on my desk, which was our 5th generation beam brush. And we put it together in 2013. We got the parts and just got distracted and it kind of forgot about it. And Lyra says, hey, what's that sitting here on the desk? And I said, oh, this is the beam brush thing. Just hadn't put it together. And Lyra said something basically like, we got to do this. You know, you make this the priority. And so it was good. I very much appreciate the push, because we did, and we made it the priority, and we demonstrated it at ILDA in this past November, and it took to great fanfare, basically. So based on all of the you know, the interest in it, and plus based on the success, like this 5th generation version is the most successful one that we've ever done, and anything that had been up to that. It accomplishes everything that we would want to accomplish. It's small. It could be made inexpensively. It's super fast. We can make every other point in a point-oriented image a different beam diameter. It is incredibly fast. It works with all colors. As far as we know, there is no power handling limitation to it. So it's just like pie in the sky. It's like, of course you would want to do this. So that's what we've done. So I've got a couple of graphics to show you.
I was going to say, what can we actually do with it? What applications does it have?
Yeah, so I'll show you. So once again, I want to start here. So this is where we started in 1975.
Yeah.
Right, and this is where we are basically last year.
Yeah.
Right, and there's and really, there's not all that much difference between this and this, right? It's the same.
For sure.
It's the same Sharpie. It's a Sharpie, right? And so in other words, this is the instrument you have to work with. It's a laser beam. It's real small. So imagine if every artist, no matter who they were, whether they're Rembrandt or Andy Warhol or the guy painting your house, this is the tool he's got to work with, right? So it's going to take a real long time to paint the house with a Sharpie, right? So it's a really neat tool to do a lot of things, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to actually paint your house with a paint roller, for God's sake, right? You need something bigger. And so this was some of the early stuff that we did with it. And you could see the Laser Show Designer 2000 kind of the screenshots in the drawing editor and the result down here.
Oh yeah, that's neat. Very neat.
And I'll show you some of the other things that Lyra and I have both done. So the first few will be from Lyra. So this is some of the abstracts. So you can control the variable beam diameter. And the reason why I'm doing this in this low-tech way is because I thought, well, I'll just project it on the back. But then we've got competing camera flicker and all that crap. So this way, it's low-tech, but it'll work. Plus, they can go to YouTube and see it. But here's another thing. You can see you can just see the variable beam diameter and what that does. It's really, just a completely different dimension. Here's another abstract here.
Yeah, I was going to say, it really changes the dimension of the laser from just thin line.
Yeah, and so here's another one. Like it's a pretty neat image without beam brush, but with beam brush, it's just like you can't even believe it. So here's another one. This is actually a screen capture from the video. That's why you see this text down there. So when they go to YouTube and type Pangolin beam brush, they'll find videos that have this one in there.
Okay, well,
perhaps also this one. So this one here is very interesting because it's an abstract image, and all of the lines originally in the abstract are as thin as this white line.
Yeah.
And just to show you how fast this device is, I picked out just the first few white lines, and then I immediately go to full beam diameter. And when you do that, everything else becomes completely filled in.
That's cool.
So you can finally fill things in. You know, we've always been wanting to basically fill things in. You know, imagine how you could use this on a person's face. You got the eyebrows, which in many cases start big and get smaller. You would want big, blushy cheeks. You would want red lips that are kind of fatter. Just the degree of artistic expression that this allows is really unlimited. You think, you know, what you and I just talked about is there's you, there's Mike, there's Corey Simpson, there's Jay Heck, there's all these old timers, Doug McCullough, and each one of us has done these different artistic expression. Well, as many different people as there are and had these different artistic ways of using a laser, now you have this tool that it's like all of these people and all of these ideas multiplied by this tremendously flexible beam diameter thing. And it is infinitely variable. There's no steps in between. So you could you have any beam diameter next to any other beam diameter. It really kicks ass.
Awesome. I mean, those images look really cool, and my mind is now full of all these images going off. I guess it brings a whole different dimension to things like company logos, even like Beamworks. And how about audience scanning? I'm sure audience scanning, the safety aspect of scanning with something like beam brush would be good. Yes,
it's really cool for a few reasons. One is it's very interesting. So Lyra was working in her studio and had a video projector, and the central video projector had beam brush on it, and the outer two projectors were just regular ordinary laser projectors, right? And what was interesting was this. So Lyra was scanning concentric circles, right? But like this, right? So now what was interesting was, and I never really consciously noticed this before, but the concentric circles viewed edge on, viewed like this, right? Just looks like a bunch of lines.
Yes.
It just looks like because somehow, you know, you're just viewing it like this, and it's illuminating the fog, but it's kind of so what? You can't really see the dimensionality to it. But then when Lyra put beam brush on the central one, and made each of the concentric circles a different beam diameter, all of a sudden you can see that it's not just lines, it's circles in the air.
Nice.
Right? and so it's easy for people to understand how if you have a tool like this, you can make graphics that have variable things. That's easy to understand. It's harder to understand what it's going to do in the air. Yeah. And until you see it, you can't really kind of visualize. It's hard for me to talk about. You see it a little bit in the YouTube videos, especially the one from 10 years ago where we did all kinds of stuff in the air. It was really cool. But with respect to laser safety, what's neat about it is that, we got these safety scan lenses where we can make the beams that go down into the audience a bigger beam diameter. But again, we're kind of back to the land of Sharpies, right? Where you got, okay, now you got two tools. You got one above the audience and one in the audience, right? The great thing about beam brush is you can make this continually variable, and just as we have this thing called beam attenuation map for laser safety controls the beam power, we now have a beam attenuation map for the beam brush. We call it a BAM brush. So we have this brush where you can say in the audience, I want it to be this diameter, and no matter what you put there, it does it. It will enforce that beam diameter on whatever you put. So it's just so easy to just apply this. You just put the projector there, put the audience, figure out what the beam diameter's got to be, paint it into the BAM brush, and it's done. It's just so easy. So yeah, for laser safety, it really makes a big difference and makes it easier to accomplish laser safety.
Yeah, and that's really nice, and being from a generation where we stood in lasers before we really understood, some of the, I wouldn't say danger, but, it's not the safest thing to stand in a laser beam. The fact that we can actually do that now without having to worry is really amazing. Yeah.
Well, I try to avoid the word danger, Tim. Yes. And use a more, it's a potential ocular hazard, right? I'm not sure. I mean, as proof, you and I have been doing this, and we've been accidentally hit in the face with lasers plenty of times. You're setting something up, and all of a sudden something comes on, and we're living to tell about it, right? So it can't be all that dangerous if old timers have been working around this thing every day are still around to talk about it. But yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like I want one. How do I get one? And can I bring my laser to you and you install it, beam brush into my laser? How does it work? Right. How does that?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things that we've learned since we brought this out, like I said, we demonstrated it in last November. And then since then, we've done a lot of experiments with it to try to find out how easy it is going to be to retrofit this into existing projectors. And this is what we found. So these days, most laser projectors are diode-based. And most diode-based projectors don't just have 3 diodes. It's not just a red, a green, and a blue. It's multiple reds, multiple greens, multiple blues, right? And so they combine these things in a matrix-like array.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting is when you put this thing through something that increases the beam divergence, whether it's our safety scan lenses or beam brush, what happens is you start to see the structure, right? Like when it's a nice small beam and you're drawing things with it, you really can't see the structure. But if you expand this, all of a sudden things start looking not so great. It's like maybe I'm not so interested in this after all. And so we work with Quant in Slovakia, who produces these lasers, and what they have done is they have basically adjusted these arrays in their lasers so that when they expand, it stays pleasing. Let me put it that way. It's all of a sudden things don't start happening that you wish wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah. They do what you would want it to do, and so I think basically our initial approach is to work with Quant. They have created lasers that work with beam brush real well. They build beam brush right into their projectors. And so for people who want a kind of if they want to get into this right now, the easiest and best way is to just buy a new Quant projector that has beam brush in it. The cost increment to include beam brush really isn't all that high. Justin is the money guy, so he's the one who figures out what the prices are. And anytime I talk about prices, I'm wrong. So I'm not going to talk about price, but it's not all that. It's not super expensive, right? Basically, what beam brush is, I wish I had one in my hand to show you. It's a scanner and some optics and a special mirror arrangement. And so it doesn't cost us that much money to build it. And so therefore, we can make it for a company for not all that much money too. So at first, the way to do it is to just buy a quant projector with it, and we'll kind of go that route for a while and see kind of how that works, and consider retrofits in the future. Kind of based on how that goes and our results and how we're observing the beams are staying together and looking good. So,
okay. So if I want one, the best way to do it, if a customer wants one or someone watching this video wants one, the best way to get one is to contact either you or me directly?
Yes, that would be great.
Cool. And then how do I control it?
With our software, Beyond software, and it's really cool. So we have built a number of tools right into the Beyond software to control this thing. And so, so obviously from when we started in 1986 until now, BeamBrush hasn't existed. So there's no pre-existing content that's ready for this thing, right?
Correct.
And so as a result, it's not like, okay, I get this new HD TV and I get all this stuff, and that doesn't work very well. So in Beyond, we have built a number of what we call effects in.
Yeah.
So of how you can apply BeamBrush on top of the existing content. So you can, you talked about corporate logos. One of the things I've demonstrated just through my own kind of hacking around is the McDonald's logo. How it used to say McDonald's and have just the outlines, and now we can just increase the things and make the golden arches like really thick. I did this with the Subway logo where you got the word Subway here, and then the outside, it was just a line. Again, we're back in the world of Sharpies now, right? But yeah, with BeamBrush, I could just create this really wide thing. And it was really easy just using Beyond Effects to apply BeamBrush only in the area of the logo where I wanted. And we also have it built into the drawing editor too, where I could just open up this thing and just kind of paint roll, just like we had a paint roller. You could now paint roll BeamBrush right into these logos and stuff like that. So there's a number of effects that are built into Beyond where you can just instantly put it on top of scanning beamed effects, overhead beam effects, audience scanning, and graphics. And it's just a matter of clicking a few mouse clicks, and it just goes right on there. It's really cool.
Awesome. Well, this is Tim Bennett from ArgonTV. I'm here talking to Bill Benner from Pangolin Laser Systems about the very amazing BeamBrush and how you can paint with laser. And in a moment, we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Justin Perry from Pangolin here with my good friend Niels Kudla from Automation. And we wanted to give you a little behind the scenes look at a new technology called BeamBrush that we're going to be releasing at Pro Light and Sound in Frankfurt in 2020. So what BeamBrush is going to allow you to do is increase as well as decrease the divergence of a laser beam in real time. And right now we've got BeamBrush installed into one of our Club Max 3000 FB4 units. And we're going to throw up a couple of looks here just so you can get an idea of how it looks, what it can do, and how this technology can serve you. So as you can see here, BeamBrush, it's going to increase as well as decrease the divergence of the beam in real time. So you can almost paint with the laser. And we really think this is going to help expand the toolkit that artists have, allowing you to create new, more sophisticated and diverse laser light shows, as well as more sophisticated art installations using laser, where you can really start to use the laser in a new way and almost paint with it as an additional tool. And Niels, obviously being one of the most creative guys in the industry, he's been playing with this the whole exhibition, and I'll let him say a few things about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
Guys, yeah, I had the chance the last 2 days to play around with it as much as I could, and yeah, what I have to say, I see it so much in my projects and galleries and art projects. The looks that are possible now, they can go into a direction of, at the end, video content. You can be competitive with a laser to a pixel wall. You can create totally different effects by mixing what Pangolin Beyond gives you anyway, effect engines with this BeamBrush technology. So I've tried out a few things here, like standard forms, just zooming in and out, and this new zoom factor, I think will show a lot of new interesting designs, especially also with scrolling text, night outlines like handwritten text are possible. Yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Well, come by our booth at ProLight and Sound in Frankfurt 2020. You'll get to see a great show designed with BeamBrush Incorporated. And if you guys have any other questions, you can email us info@pangolin.com or check us out online, www.pangolin.com. We'll see you next time, guys.
Hi, welcome back. This is Tim Bennett from ArgonTV, and I'm very excited because I'm talking to Bill Benner from Pangolin Laser Systems, and we have been talking about the very, very incredible BeamBrush, which allows us to paint with laser. So, Bill, I think I want one of these beam brushes. I've got to get one. This has been a long time coming, and I'm very excited. And I had no idea that it was really such a long time in development. I thought this was fairly new. But one of the other things I did want to touch base with you, and we mentioned it very quickly. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been really connecting a lot with people around the world who are in the laser world. And then there's so many new players coming in, both at the hobby level and the level of, I want to do my first, corporate show. And as in my discussions, one of the things that I've discovered to my horror is that they literally know nothing about laser safety. And it's quite shocking that they really have no idea that there are things that you need to consider. And I just wanted, while we have this opportunity to talk together, if you could just say something about laser safety is generally.
Well, the thing that the first thing is it is a serious thing. If the wrong set of circumstances come together, which are very rare, but if they do, yeah, so the classes of lasers, right? You got class 1, which is completely safe. You got class 2, which is safe under most circumstances. And then they break class 3A into 2 things. Class 3A is potentially hazardous for your eye, and class 3B is potentially hazardous for your skin, right? And then you got class 4. Class 4 means it can start a fire, right? And so, and those are the classes. And so if the wrong set of circumstances comes together, like you've got a static beam, means non-moving, on a black curtain that isn't fireproof, it'll at the very least burn a hole through the curtain, and possibly, if it's flammable, really catch the curtain on fire. So yes, there are hazards. Now, like I say, these things happen rarely. Fortunately, the laser projectors do have a lot of safety things built into them. Even our FB4 has safety things built into it, and all audience scanning is done using our PASS system, which has it's monitoring everything about the projector, the power supply, the light coming out of the projector, the scanning, and so it's really monitoring everything. And so to help with the awareness, actually, I'm somewhat chagrined to say that it's taken us all these years, but just last week we published on YouTube a video that is a real introduction to laser show safety and how to do this and how not to do that. And at the end of it, you can go to pangotest.com and actually take a test to make sure that you understand what was presented in the video, and then use those test results to help you to get your variants as proof that you know what you're doing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a dumb thing that it's taken all these years, and I'm not aware that anybody has created an online test thing or a video that puts this thing, and it's just available. It's actually free. It's out there on YouTube right now. So I'm hoping that, and we're going to include that with every laser, like a little USB thing in the lasers. Like, here, plug this in your computer, watch it now, take the test, learn this stuff, because it is important. And I'm glad you brought that up, Tim.
That's really brilliant. And can you give me a link to that? And then I'll include it in the description beneath this video so that people can find that.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you the link so that you can put it in the description. But
Cool.
And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, would be a very good idea as soon as we get off here at pangotest.com, instead of assuming that you got there by watching the video, we should just put a link to the video right at the top of the Pango test, because that way people won't have to, you know, poke around and search for the video. They can just go one place and do everything.
I'm just writing that down. Pangotest.com. Okay. Great.
Right.
So for any of these guys that are thinking about going into laser as a career and taking laser consideration into consideration, what would you recommend that they do first?
Oh gosh. So there's so many YouTube videos, both on our channel and just available. I guess the first thing might be to survey, in other words, to educate yourself on just the number of effects that you can do with a laser, because as you and I know, it could be what we call overhead beam effects, it could be audience scanning, it could be projected graphics, and even in projected graphics, it could be for a corporate show, it could be in a movie theater, so many different things. So go out there and see the different things that you can do with a laser, and then maybe figure out what you want to do first, you know, and then figure out how big the laser or how many lasers you're going to need to do this thing. And there's another website I'm going to throw out there called getalaser.com, where people can kind of find out there's different things on there, different lasers, different, and everything's on there. I think maybe laser scanners are on there as well, but to try to get a background on the price it's going to cost. You know, because lasers, like I say, they can start for $1,000 or even less for something very small, and it goes on up. It's like just like cars. How much do you want to spend on a car, right? So, you know, it's figuring out what you want to do first, figuring out the budgetary element to that next, and then just getting it and having fun with it. I guess step 3 would be that. So.
Yeah, I think the fun element was something that always influenced me a lot. I like having fun, and, you know, going to work and having fun and getting paid for it.
Sure,
like a great thing. And we have talked fairly extensively offline about making a career out of the laser industry.
Right.
And you mentioned a few people who have been in it for quite a while.
Sure.
For me, is it 28 years? I think I've been in the industry now. So
Yeah.
it is possible to make a career out of lasers.
That's right. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I do want to give a shout out to the younger folks too. There's a guy named Peter Jan Reich in the Netherlands, and he's, you know, he started kind of with us as an intern, poking around with it before then, and he has really just taken off. And again, completely different angle of where he's going. He does a lot of anime and 3D Studio Max stuff, and he's gotten into the motion capture and that sort of thing, like probably more than anyone. Another guy named Andy Garcia, another guy, you know, these guys are probably doing it 5 years by now, but when they first started, they kind of get into it just mostly as a hobby. And Andy Garcia, you can probably find his stuff up on YouTube. He's morphed his thing into something called laser face, which is just like kind of like what it sounds, lasers in your face, right?
Yeah.
He creates very large scale shows, and I think he's had a video tour, a laser face tour, and stuff like that. So you can get into this as a young guy. I say young guy, these guys are probably in their 20s now, but maybe we'd start 18 and then just kind of really get into it and pick a path. Because what I think Andy Garcia and Peter Jean have both been in it about the same amount of time, vastly different directions in terms of what they're doing with lasers. So there's just so many things you could do, so many places you can go.
And I seem to remember your journey. I mean, I can't remember exactly how you got into lasers, but you come from a family who have been involved in technology for quite a while, if I remember.
Yeah, well, my dad actually, he worked on the very first commercial computer. It was called Univac. The very first real computer was called ENIAC. And the first one that actually people bought and did business with and ran governments was called Univac. It's the universal, Univac is the universal automatic computer. That's what that stands for. And so he worked there for a while, and then he went on to NASA and helped man get on the moon with the Apollo space program. So I was always kind of poking around with him and hanging around him and just watching what he was doing. So that's really what inspired me to get involved with electronics. And then, you know, I got into a high school electronics program and just kind of went on from there. In the university I went to, is called University of Central Florida. They have a program called CREOL. It's the Center for Research in Electro-Optics and Lasers. And so it has a lot of laser things in it. So obviously there's university programs that people can go to learn lasers, mostly scientific and that sort of thing at Creole. But yeah, it's anyone can do this.
But what I love about the industry is that we have these two diverse, opposite people. There's you, who've got this family that have been involved in, going to the moon. And then there's me. I left school at 16. I was a window cleaner.
Right.
When I first started working with lasers, they would say, can you get us a 25 way? And what's one of those? What's a 25 way? And I knew zero about anything. And I literally had to learn everything. And, I did it on the ground. I was working with a professional company in the UK, in London.
Right.
And they were very good to me because they took the time to teach me. But I wanted to be taught. I found, laser just the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And I still do. I still think there's no light form quite like laser.
Right.
And it's been this nearly 30-year love story. But I was just able to slot in, learn what I needed to learn. And all the technical stuff that I didn't know, I could drag in someone like you.
Sure. And
we complement each other. I was, my brain is, very visual and very artistic. Sometimes autistic. And I bring in the people that I need to if we need, very technical stuff. And that's what I love about this world, is that literally anyone can step into it if they have the passion and the desire, and they can turn it into a lifelong career. And for someone like me, I started this off by saying it changed my life. It literally has changed my life, because I went from a guy who had really no future. I literally had no idea what I was going to do. And for the last, since 1996, I've been living in Asia.
Yeah.
I built my own company. I travel all over the place nonstop. I've worked with celebrities, kings, queens, governments, different countries. And it's really been an incredible journey. I met Jane, the love of my life, who's because of laser.
Yeah.
In fact, it was one of my opening lines when I met her. I didn't say, do you want to come up and see my etchings? I said, do you want to come and see a laser show?
Well, of course. Of course. And the guitar thing doesn't work. Trust me. The guitar thing doesn't work.
Yeah, so, it's completely changed my life. And I would say, to anyone thinking about coming into it, come into it, but do it seriously. As you said, study what you need to study, find out the things that you need to find out, but you can have an amazing career. And again, one of the things that I really liked about this industry was that everyone seems so willing to help everyone else.
Sure.
You mentioned lots of names of people that I know and have been around for a long time. And the new guys, the two, I think it was Andy and was it Peter you said?
Yeah, Andy Garcia and Peter Jean, yeah.
I've spoken to both of them recently, and everyone's just so willing to help and put themselves out and share information. And if you had one gold nugget that you could say, this is Bill's secret to success in the laser world, what would it be?
Okay. Well, this is completely, we did not prepare this, but you just kind of set it up for me in so much as saying, hey, everybody's been so helpful. And the key to helpfulness is something called abundance, right? It's what's called an abundance mindset, as opposed to something called a scarcity mindset. And now, the person who set forth these two mindsets is Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. So if I have one piece of success of advice to give anybody, and it's to read The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. The book, it's available in audio too, and it will change your life. If you're a religious person, it will be the second most important book in your life. If you're not a religious person, it will be the first important book in your life. And it is, because what it does is it realigns your thinking to thinking of abundance. And yes, it's to be sharing, it's to be helpful, it's not have a scarcity mindset. And so that's it.
Awesome. That's really, I didn't expect that answer, but that's really awesome. But I totally agree. One of the things I love about laser is being able to make people happy.
Yeah.
Just for a moment, they can come to a show and they forget all their problems, and they just sit there and go, wow. And it's such a nice moment when you can transform people and just take them out of their shit, you know, and give them a wonderful moment. And that's what
they're going to remember too. When they go to a concert, what they always talk about are the lasers. Go to a birthday party with lasers. That's what they're going to remember.
Yes, indeed, indeed. People, unfortunately, and you know, no disrespect to other industries, people don't remember the microphone stand when they go home, you know.
That's right, or the truss.
or the video projector, or the truss, yeah. And although they're essential,
oh sure,
laser's really a wow factor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one last question, and it comes from a friend of mine called Patrick Chow.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Patrick. He's from DJ Starlights. I think they're based in China.
Huh.
And he said, he wanted me to ask you this question. How can we prepare for the market after COVID-19? And should we cut budgets or keep the same policy going?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's a great question. What I would say is the events are definitely coming back. Now, Pangolin, as the company who sells the control systems and software to everybody, we have kind of the bird's eye view. In other words, when people want to do a laser show, they're going to have to buy oftentimes software controllers and stuff like that to do these things, right? And so when you're sitting at home, you're thinking, what's going to happen here? Or laser shows completely going away? What's happening? And I can tell you, the Jay Heck on Instagram had a great way of putting this. He says, don't think about this as the end, think about this as an intermission. Just like when you go to some theater shows, there's the intermission, you know, there's kind of a break. It's for you to take a break. And what we're doing during this break, and what we recommend other people to do, is to just hone your skills. Take this time to. There's so many things that when you're super busy, you don't have time to deal with this thing. Now, if you're not busy, take time to deal with whatever it was bothering you. Learn new things and that sort of thing, because it is coming back. That's what I would say. And how we know is because we'd be the one to know. The orders are coming in. So since China was the first to go through COVID-19, they're the first kind of to exit COVID-19, and they're the first where these events are coming back. So we are seeing events happening in Shanghai again. We also got wind of a huge show, and I forget what it's called. Justin talked about this from time to time in Switzerland. So events are coming back. I'm not, you know, in historically, entertainment is, you know, whenever there's a recession, entertainment is the thing that people use. Entertainment tends to always do well in time of recession, for the reason why you just said, Tim. You know, it kind of takes people out, it transports you somewhere else, it gets you away from thinking about kind of some of the other stuff going on, you know. So budgets, that's kind of Justin's end of the spectrum, and I'm sure Justin would very much appreciate a telephone call to any kind of discussion like that. But yeah, in terms of events themselves, they're going to come back. Jay Heck says that this is an intermission, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I like that thought, and I kind of feel, you know, when the green light is given and it's like all clear, there's going to be one hell of a party.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand, that's for sure.
But I do like what you said just now, is that it's an intermission, and it does give you time. Like in the beginning, I think we've been in 6 or 7 weeks of lockdown right now. Yeah. In the first 2 weeks, it's kind of nice. You get to slow down, smell the roses.
Oh, sure.
You know, spend time with the people you love. You know,
right.
Week 3, it's like, I'd like to go out now. And now we're in 7 weeks or something. It's like, I'm going a little brain crazy, but it allowed me to launch, for example, ArgonTV. I've been talking about, you know, getting this going again for weeks and weeks, months and months and months.
Right.
And now it's given me the space to actually step back and say, okay, let's get it going.
Yes, that's right.
And we got it going. So this is episode 1. And you know, I'm so grateful you're our first guest. But I agree, you know, it gives you the time to actually take stock of where we are in life and where we want to go and what we want to do, and start putting some plans in place. And then as soon as we can, get it all back into action again. So I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
So with that, I want to say thank you, Bill, for being our first guest. It's been awesome having you here, and it's been an epic journey of nearly 30 years that we've been together. Not quite a marriage, but
yeah,
certainly going that way. And, you know, I'd like to express my gratitude to you for all the support and the help that you've given over the years. Not just to me, but I know that you support the industry in a massive way as a world leader in laser software. And, you know, that's just fantastic. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. And it's a tremendous honor to me too, to be your first guest on the inaugural show. It's fantastic. And to be able to chat with you, a long-term customer, client, and friend. So fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you a thumbs up and a great testimonial. So I'm very happy with Pangolin Laser Systems and Bill Bennett.
Well, great. Well, thank you.
Well, thanks very much, everybody. It's been an awesome program, and we have been discussing beam brush and how to paint with laser with the one and only Bill Bennett from Pangolin Laser Systems. This is Tim Bennett from Argon TV, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.